I'm Natalia. I'm just coming from my YouTube channel, Mipopi, here for UN channel. And here with me, I have Jenny Sir Jones, CEO of Ocean Conservancy. And first of all, I would like you to tell us a little bit more Ocean Conservancy. What's the role of the organization?
So Ocean Conservancy is an environmental NGO. We are based in the United States, but we work globally and we are trying to tackle the greatest global challenges facing the ocean. So that's climate change, that's plastics, are two of the main drivers right now for ocean health.
For me, I live in Brazil. We have a very, very huge coast, and we don't know anything about like how's the ocean being, how is suffering because of the consumption, because of the way we consume, because like the economics at all. Would you explain us how our behavior day by day is making some very what's the worst decisions we are making every day?
So when you look at the ocean, you can think about it as ocean health, roughly speaking, is what are we putting into the ocean and what are we taking out of the ocean? And right now we're putting in way too much pollution, and that's in the form of plastic, that's in the form of carbon emissions, and we're taking out too much also in terms of taking out too much marine life and destroying habitats. And so one of the things that we think about for everybody who cares about the ocean is how do you rebalance that relationship with the ocean where we're not putting in too much pollution, we're not taking out too much marine life and marine biodiversity. And when it comes down to individuals, a lot of that has to do with our energy consumption, and a lot of that has to do with our plastic consumption, because plastic is made of fossil fuel, so it's really part of the same climate challenge that the ocean has. And one other thing I would say about the ocean, we live on land and we have been buffered by the ocean in terms of the worst impacts of climate change. But for the ocean, it would be much worse for us on land. The ocean's absorbed about 90% of the heat and about a quarter of our carbon dioxide emissions. So the ocean's really protected us up until this point from what would be the worst impacts of climate change, but it's coming as a great cost to the ocean and to marine life and to the wildlife and the communities that depend on the ocean. And so coastal communities are really experiencing these changes.
And as we are in the halftime to achieve the 17 SDGs, in your point of view, what's the responsibilities of the companies, the huge companies or the medium companies? What's their responsibilities in this impact in the oceans?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things to think about. One is energy footprint, because climate change is such a huge driver to what's happening in the ocean. But the cool thing about the ocean is it's actually a really powerful source of solutions too. So one of the things that Ocean Conservancy is calling for is a responsible, rapid, and just transition to clean ocean energy. Because right now the ocean that comes out of the ocean is fossil fuels. Excuse me, the energy that's coming out of the ocean is fossil fuels, and that's driving climate change, which is hurting the ocean. But the ocean has enough offshore wind capability and power to actually power the entire planet. And that green energy has a huge benefit for coastal communities with stable, efficient, cost-effective energy that's less polluting and will help preserve that ocean that everybody depends upon.
And as a consumers, what's in our hands so we can change that?
So plastic, I would say, is one thing that we can all think about and we can all have an individual impact. Plastic is 99% made out of fossil fuels, so when you're using that plastic utensil, you're drinking out of that plastic bottle, you are consuming fossil fuel, whether you think about it or not. And there's a huge opportunity with global discussions around a global plastics treaty to actually reduce the amount of production of virgin plastic, to move to a more circular economy where consumers have the ability to actually make choices about circularity and to actually care for the ocean by making sure we're also taking care of derelict and abandoned fishing gear. So from a consumer perspective and from a company perspective, there's a huge amount that we can do collectively to reduce that plastic burden on the ocean and also reduce that production of virgin plastics, which will be better for the ocean and better for consumers as well. Because everywhere we look, we find plastics, including in our food.
Yeah, and I really want you to talk about the cost of sustainability, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, like small businesses, and the cost to be sustainable it's higher, and then you get not profitable. Where are we in this path? How can we deal with this paradox right now?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because part of the challenge for sustainability right now is we have been subsidizing these polluting legacy industries right now, and so fossil fuel has an advantage over clean energy, for example.
Yeah.
Virgin plastic has an advantage over recycled plastic and over other forms of delivering packaging, for example, because governments around the world continue to subsidize these old legacy industries that are really causing climate change and affecting our ability to have a sustainable life on this planet. And so part of what we all need to do is call on our governments, call on our companies to actually make true climate commitments and to reduce those subsidies, because that will level the playing field, and we can also incentivize those sustainable industries instead of the ones that are driving us into this climate and biodiversity crisis.
And maybe for a while they will have to slow down growth and profit.
I don't think so. It's really a matter, if you look at all of the investments, if we could move the investments from these legacy polluting industries into cleaner technology, newer technology, innovation, we could have a step change in terms of our ability to actually be sustainable on this planet. So I think it's really a question around the incentives and making sure that we're lining up the incentives with our future instead of with our past.
Do you have some example of that in a real company?
Well,
that
if you
could
look
share?
at global fishing, for example, there are tens of billions of dollars that are subsidizing fishing, and about 22 billion of that is actually subsidizing overfishing. So it's causing food security issues, particularly for coastal populations, but we're still pouring money into those industries. And then the fossil fuel industry is another one. If you look at offshore wind, for example, which has the opportunity to be responsible and rapid and a just transition, which will help coastal communities, we're still subsidizing fossil fuel and not incentivizing enough the economic certainty that is needed to make those long-term investments in offshore wind, for example.
Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you can have a good time here, have a very good conversations, and make your work bigger and bigger, because we need it. The way you are doing it, your work, it's helping everybody here have an air to breathe, have food to eat. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.